Alright, so this video is going to cover the basics of power management, selecting your targets, moving and evading, engaging and disengaging within dogfights. First, you're going to need to customize your ship. Make sure you've got a build that you're
You're
comfortable
looking
with.
for a custom job.
This is my personal build. I prefer to combine the rockets with the standard laser cannon to try to get as much damage as possible, combined with that 1,000 meter range. I like the rockets because they're dumbfire, do good damage, and have a proximity fuse, so you don't have to directly hit your target, you just need to get it close enough. Actually, that's my
Nice.
build there. I combine that with the repair droid for longevity within dogfights, the seeker warheads because of the fast reload and amount of ammunition you get for them, the light hull for maneuverability, and then the shields. I use the resonant shield because there is no shield decay, and when your shield is maxed out, it passively charges your weapons. I combine that with the slam engine, which also has a passive boost to your engines and your boost speed charge rate, which means that as long as your shields are up, your weapons are going to be charging automatically, and your boost will charge automatically regardless of your shields or weapons. Your boost is just going to charge anyway. So if you power your shields power your weapons, and then you can leave the rest of your power in your
Very
engines
nice.
for maneuverability, speed, boosting, drifting, and all the maneuvers that we're going to cover later. So once you have a build you're comfortable with, you just jump into, I would recommend jumping into practice mode to get used to drifting. Drifting is going to be a pretty huge part of the dogfight battles. It's absolutely vital for getting in behind the enemy, for escaping those circle fights where people just turn in a circle waiting for someone else to, have a lower turning rate. And drifting and boosting also to an extent negates the maneuverability advantage some fighters have over others. So that's why I'm comfortable flying an X-Wing with this build against interceptors that have, 100 plus maneuverability rating, where mine is only 80. These tactics also work for bombers, Y-Wings, and TIE bombers especially, as well as support ships. As long as you have power to engines, you can boost, you can drift, and you can kind of level the playing field against smaller, faster fighters. So as soon as I spawn, power to shields to get that up. And if you'll notice, once my shields are up, my weapons are now charging automatically. Weapons, by default, when they're overcharged, do a bonus 25% damage. So on the X-Wing, you can tell that a weapon is overcharged because it's glowing bright red, that little bar at the top. If you'll notice when I fire, that bar depletes, but if I continue to fire, you notice my projectiles will get smaller. Right there. Those weapons are no longer overcharged. Power to weapons. We're now generating a second rank of weapon power. These weapons are now overcharged. The shots are bigger, and when they're not overcharged anymore, there's a small audio cue to indicate that they are now weaker. Weaker is kind of relative. They still do as much damage as the stat card says, but when they're overcharged, every projectile does a bonus 25%, so that's what you want to get. If you'll notice, my shields have not decayed either. So my shields are at max, my weapons are still charging, my engines, even though I haven't put any power to engines, have been charging this entire time and are now at max boost. So I will go ahead and put power to engines because I want the top speed and maneuverability. I will boost. I will hold my boost button to indicate the drift, or start the drift, and I will accelerate out of it. So again, that's maximum, you're at max throttle. You press the boost button, then you release, then you press and hold your boost button to begin the drift, then you release to end the drift. If you pair this together, you can rapidly drift multiple times in a row. You have to keep an eye on that throttle in order to make sure that you're initiating the drift. And this practice ground is actually the best for doing this. So make sure to equip the repair droid because you're going to impact a couple times. And you really just want to practice drifting around, going through things. Just to try to get used to doing this in a dogfight. See? Impacted. Sorry, repair. And you're good to go. So in a fight, on this map of dogfights, it's more important that you evade the enemy. So that you can survive to kill them. Because you can't kill them if you're dead. Alright. So that's kind of the basics of maneuvering. Again, that's max throttle, boost, release, boost button, hold to start the drift, release to end the drift. Practice that on this map, this mode, this practice mode, to get used to doing it. Because you're going to be using it a lot in multiplayer. If you'll notice, my weapons and shields are still at maximum. That's the passive boost generations I was talking about earlier. I'm going to go ahead and spawn in an enemy squadron. I'm going to cycle through my targets. I want to find one that is going to be a good hit. See, that guy no longer has shields. But he didn't get shields from the support craft, so I'm going to focus him. Rush in, and I'm going to try to finish him off before his support craft can do enough damage to kill him. Got him. If you notice, I was firing rockets during that engagement. Only got 27 left. The purpose of the rockets is to do as much damage as possible, as quickly as possible. If you're not doing damage to the enemy, you're wrong. So, power the shields back up, and pick another target. Now in dogfights, see how this TIE just shot me? I would immediately switch targets to the player that shot me and go after him. Because chances are, if someone's shooting you, they're not going to suddenly stop shooting you just because you engage something else. They're going to stay on you. And they're going to be target fixated. So you need to switch targets to whoever shot you. And you need to eliminate them before you go back to fighting whoever it was you were doing. If you're fighting multiple targets at once, that may come up with you constantly switching targets. That is okay. The more times you switch targets, the faster you can evade the enemy, because they're not going to expect you to constantly switch targets and constantly switch directions. What you don't want to do, and I'll demonstrate here, is select one target and follow that target blindly. This is called target fixation. It will get you killed. Even if I go power to shields and try to survive just following this one TIE, his teammates are going to continually shoot me in the face. So I continue to follow him, but as you'll notice, his team is continuing to shoot me, and if this were a dogfight, I would be dead already. So, what we're going to do, as you'll notice, my shields do not regenerate when I'm under fire. They only regenerate when you're not being hit. So, I'm going to do power front shields. Engage this guy. I didn't actually take any damage to the front. But by being ready to shunt my shields to the front, had I taken damage, but it's left me some damage. If you'll notice, my shield did not pull power from the rear to the front, it simply regenerated. I'll put power to weapons to demonstrate that a little better. So let him hit me some more. I guess their aim is pretty realistic for stormtroopers. So, let him hit me some more. The shields are taking damage to the front, but notice that they have not reinforced. So, I'm going to hold the shield, this button here. I'm going to put power to front shields, and now my shields are up in the front at the cost of rear shields. I can tap the button to balance them, or I can tap and hold the button and select the back shields, release. They are now shields to back. Tap to balance. Go ahead and power them up. Put some more to the front. And we can continually cycle shields this way. This means that in a dogfight, if you're going head-on with targets, and they're wearing down your front shields, you can pop more shields to the front. Alright, that's pretty much the basics here. I'm going to select one of these ties to kind of follow for maneuvering. If you'll notice, when I'm chasing an enemy fighter, I'm not cutting my throttle to try to stay behind him and to follow his path exactly. I'm staying at speed and boosting and drifting around him. If you need to finish off a target, it's okay to follow behind him, just like this. But for the most part, when you're engaging, you need to be boosting, maneuvering, and drifting the entire time. The idea is to make you as difficult to hit as possible. So, boost and drift, and oftentimes in multiplayer, what will happen is that'll give you a better shot. By drifting out to the side, you can then gain a better shot on the target. Instead of having them farther away, you can have them right in front of you, where you can then fire in, or you can get a kill. Now, real quick demonstration of those proximity fuse rockets I was talking about earlier. So notice I'm going to intentionally fire a little bit to the side of him. See? Right there? I didn't actually hit either of those targets, but my rocket went off anyway. See? That was damage to him, even though the rocket landed behind him. That little proximity fuse will be absolutely crucial in multiplayer. So that's part 1 of this. For part 2, I'm going to take these tactics and I'm going to jump into a multiplayer battle.